He shouted at her like she was nothing, pointed his finger right in her face, told her to get out of his house, her house too, like she was some stranger off the street. His voice was shaking with rage, but her hands were shaking from something else. She wasn't angry. She was broken, one suitcase in her hand, the other wiping tears from her cheek, and he didn't even look back as she stepped off the porch. What he didn't know was that 5 minutes later, everything would change. Because that envelope he never let her open in peace, that envelope would change her life forever, and it's not revenge she chose. It was something even stronger. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The first time Daryl slammed the door, Clara didn't take it personally. She knew how stress could twist a man into someone he didn't want to be. She'd seen it before, in her late husband, in old patients when pain or fear got too loud to ignore. But the second time he slammed it, this time with words that sliced through her like a hot knife, she realized something had shifted, something deep, something dangerous. Daryl Johnson was 32 years old, living in the same house he'd grown up in, the house his parents had worked 2 and 3 jobs to afford. A modest one-story cracked driveway, paint peeling on the shutters, but it had warmth, or it used to. His mother Clara had moved back in with him after her husband died. At first, it made sense. She'd been alone. He'd been struggling, but over the years, what started as a support system turned into something heavier. He never said it outright, but it lingered in every comment that she was just one more thing he had to carry. He wasn't always like this. Daryl used to be gentle, not overly affectionate but protective, proud to introduce his mum to co-workers back when he had a steady job. They'd go to the same diner every Sunday. She'd tell the waitress, "That's my boy." He'd pretend to roll his eyes, but he'd smile. The kind of smile that makes a mother believe she did something right. But after he lost his job at the logistics company, things soured fast. It wasn't his fault. Not really. Downsizing, budget cuts. He was just a number on a spreadsheet. Still, the blow to his pride was brutal. He'd worked there 8 years. Suddenly, he was waking up at noon, scrolling through job listings like they were taunts. Rejection emails piled up. His friends stopped calling. Bills didn't. The house felt smaller, darker. Clara tried. She always tried. She'd wake up early to make him breakfast even when he barely touched it. She offered to help pay the electric bill from her small pension, but he barked at her. "You think I can't handle it? You think I need your charity?" She never meant it that way, but Daryl was drowning in a sea of not good enough, and every word she spoke felt like another wave pulling him under. Some days were worse than others. On those days, he'd barely speak. Other days, he spoke too much. Loud, fast, mean. He blamed the system, his old boss, the younger hires, the world. And sometimes, when his voice cracked and his hands trembled, he'd blame Clara too. "If I didn't have to take care of you, maybe I'd have more options. You think I don't notice how much water you waste, how much you eat, how you hover like some nurse from the past who thinks she still runs the place." She never answered back. But that silence, it wasn't weakness. It was restraint, because deep down, Clara knew something Daryl didn't. She knew the value of patience. She'd spent 40 years as a nurse. She'd seen what pressure did to people, how fear turned love into resentment. But still, she was human. Still, she had limits. The last straw wasn't loud. It was a quiet Tuesday, overcast sky. Clara had just folded his laundry, left it neatly on his bed. She'd made lunch, grilled cheese, his favorite, with tomato soup. He didn't say thank you, just stared at a rejection email, then at her. His eyes were glassy, but his voice was sharp. "You know what? Maybe it's time you found somewhere else to stay. I mean, it's not like I asked you to come here. You just showed up. Took over. I'm not a kid anymore. I need space." Clara's breath caught, but she didn't cry. She just nodded, slowly, like her heart was breaking one beat at a time. She didn't even ask where she was supposed to go. She just went to her room, pulled out her old suitcase, the one she used to take on nursing retreats back in the day. She packed only what she needed. A few dresses, her medications, a framed photo of her late husband, and a folded letter she hadn't opened yet. That letter had arrived the day before, hand-delivered by a man in a suit, Jordan Wallace. He said he was from a legal office, asked for Clara personally, said he needed a signature. He didn't explain much, just handed her a yellow envelope with a seal she didn't recognize. Darryl had seen the whole thing and assumed it was some scam, or worse, a debt collector. He grilled her with questions, but Clara stayed calm, said she'd look at it in her own time. She never got the chance. When she stepped out of the house that Tuesday afternoon, suitcase in one hand, envelope in her purse, tears quietly rolling down her cheeks, Jordan Wallace was parked on the edge of the property, like he knew this moment was coming. He got out of the car, opened the passenger door gently and waited. He didn't say a word, just gave her space to choose. Behind her, Darryl stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight, like he was doing something noble, like throwing out the woman who'd raised him was a form of tough love. He didn't notice the letter she carried, didn't ask why the lawyer was still there, didn't even wonder where she'd go. Clara didn't look back. She didn't have the strength. The lawyer helped her into the car, closed the door gently, and they drove away. Slow, silent, with the heavy quiet of a chapter closing. Darryl stood there for a minute. Then he went inside, closed the door, sat on the couch, and for the first time in weeks, the house was truly quiet. He told himself he did what he had to do, that sometimes people needed a wake-up call, that he wasn't the bad guy. But somewhere beneath the excuses, the justifications, the anger and bruised ego, something else crept in, something cold, something like regret. And still, he had no idea what was coming, no idea what that envelope really meant, no idea that Clara Johnson, the woman he'd just sent away with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart, was about to become someone the whole town would be talking about, someone who'd no longer need to knock on his door ever again. 2 weeks passed. The house felt bigger now, but not in a good way, the kind of bigger that echoed when Darryl walked from room to room, like the walls were asking him questions he didn't have answers to. He kept telling himself he did what was necessary, that he needed space, that he couldn't live under judgment, even if no one was actually judging him but himself. He slept in later now, didn't bother folding the laundry, left dishes in the sink until the smell reminded him he was alone. He didn't call his mother, told himself she was probably with a cousin or in a shelter somewhere, quietly waiting for time to pass. He didn't want to feel guilty, so he tried not to think at all. But even silence can get loud when you have nothing to fill it with. One afternoon, he got a letter in the mail that caught his eye. It wasn't a bill or an ad or one of those fake checks from loan companies. It had his name on it, and Clara's. The return address said, Wallace and Kemp Estates. His stomach sank. He tore it open in the kitchen, his hands shaking like it was a time bomb. Inside, just a few pages, a formal letter, a legal notification, and then the number $4.8 million. At first, he thought it was a mistake, some other Clara Johnson, some mix-up, but the next paragraph explained it all. Lillian Waverly, an elderly woman, a widow, no heirs. Clara had cared for her 20 years ago during her final battle with cancer. She had no family, but she had one friend, one person who stayed after her shift, who read to her, who brought flowers on days no one else visited. Clara had been her nurse and her light in the dark, and Lillian never forgot. Before she died, she left everything she had to the woman who showed her kindness when it cost nothing and meant everything. The lawyer, Jordan Wallace, had tried to deliver the news in person. That was the man who showed up outside their house, the man Darryl had ignored, written off as another problem. Clara had the envelope that day. He remembered now, the way she tucked it away, how quiet she became after, how she didn't fight back when he yelled, because she already knew. She knew the truth and didn't need to prove anything to him. She wasn't leaving empty-handed. She was walking away from someone who had already lost more than he realized. Darryl dropped the papers on the floor. He sat down hard. His knees buckled under the weight of it all. The shame burned hotter than anything he'd felt before. It wasn't just that his mother was now wealthy. It wasn't about money. It was what the money revealed. The truth that all along she had carried more grace, more strength, more dignity than he had given her credit for. She had been his safety net, his supporter, his home, and he'd tossed her out like an old coat he didn't think he needed anymore. He started searching, called every cousin, every friend of hers. Most of them were polite but short. They knew. Word traveled fast. No one said it to his face, but he could hear it in their voices. Disappointment, maybe even disgust. One finally gave him an address, said Clara was working on something. a new place. When Darryl pulled up to the old brick building near the edge of town, he didn't recognize it at first. The sign out front was new: Waverley Community Clinic, in memory of Lillian and all who were forgotten. Workers were painting the last of the walls. Inside, nurses walked through half-assembled exam rooms, volunteers sorted medical supplies, laughter and movement filled the space like fresh air. He spotted her near the back, in the garden space behind the clinic. Clara was kneeling, hands in the soil, planting something next to a line of rosemary bushes. She looked peaceful, thinner maybe, but steady. He hesitated, then walked over. The sound of his shoes on gravel made her look up. For a long moment she didn't say anything, just stared, not coldly, not warmly either, just seeing him, really seeing him. "I got the letter," Darryl said quietly. Clara nodded once and turned back to the soil, brushing dirt from her hands before standing. "I figured you would." "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't know about any of it." "You didn't ask," she replied, calm even. He swallowed hard. "I was angry. I was scared. I lost my job, and I felt like I was failing, like I was being judged." Clara's eyes softened, but she didn't move closer. "I wasn't judging you. I was just trying to help." "I know," he whispered, "and I didn't treat you right. I was cruel. I let my pride make me blind." There was a silence then, not heavy, just full. Clara looked at him for a long moment before speaking. "Do you know what I thought about when I was walking away from the house? Not the yelling, not the suitcase. I thought about when you were 7. You broke your arm jumping off the swing set because you wanted to prove you could fly. You cried so hard. But when I held you, you calmed down, because you believed I'd never let anything happen to you. I held on to that memory when I walked away, because I had to remind myself, you weren't always like this." Tears welled in Darryl's eyes. He looked down, ashamed. "I don't hate you," she said softly, "but I needed to step away. Not because of the money, not because of the house, but because I needed to protect my peace, and I won't let anyone take that from me anymore, not even my son." He nodded slowly. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, truly." Clara looked out over the garden. The breeze lifted a strand of hair from her face. "I believe you're sorry. I hope you mean it enough to do something with it, to change. Not for me, for yourself." "I want to," he said. "I really do." "I hope you do," she said. "But you'll have to walk that road without me for now." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just nodded again and stepped back. As he turned to leave, she called after him. "Darryl," he turned. "I still love you," she said. "But love doesn't mean staying where I'm not respected." He felt something deep give way inside him, something he hadn't let go of until now. And in that letting go there was pain, but there was also clarity. He left quietly. No promises, no grand gestures, just silence and the start of something real. Clara stayed in the garden until the sun dipped low. Then she went back inside to meet with her staff. There was work to be done, people to help, a life still unfolding, not in bitterness, but in purpose. If you watched this and felt something, tell us in the comments with one word: respect. Because no matter how close the relationship, it means nothing without that. There is a story here on the screen that will also move you. Press to watch, you won't regret it.